pass this house every day.
You
It's a very well manicured yard.
hold on.
They're passing the rush.
Carlos, you want to put your mic closer to your so maybe that'll help. I think everybody close. Should we go as close as possible? So testing. Are we good, DJ? Yeah. We're in the box.
We're rocking and rolling.
Box.
So
September 7th.
It's
Wednesday.
September 7th over here at Archway, 2016. Wednesday, September 7th. This is Michelle Peterson, an entrepreneur from scratch. This is our 11th podcast.
Number 11.
And we have another wonderful guest today that it seems like, depending on we're going to vote, depending on how much action she brings to this table each time she comes, we're now even. White people and black people.
How about that?
Oh, wow.
And gender specific. Now, two
right.
girls, two boys.
How about that?
I mean, and we have a representative gay person. And we have an
This is pretty-
Indian in the room, but he's staying quiet. We don't.
He frowns a lot. He shouldn't frown so much.
He's smiling now. We're going to take him to lunch.
That's not a real frown.
We're going to get him a girlfriend. That's what I'm thinking.
He needs a girlfriend.
We're going to hook him up. We're gonna try to make it work. But this is Michelle Peterson. Go ahead and introduce yourselves.
Andy Sweet. You know me.
Lakweshia Ewing.
Carlos Hampton.
And Carlos, tell us a little bit about yourself in case this is the first time anyone's listened. And we'll go around the room.
There's not much to tell. I have a well manicured yard.
You do have a well manicured yard.
Carlos Hampton, almost 19-year vet with the City of Chattanooga Fire Department. Small minority entrepreneur. Born and bred Chattanooga. Born in the South Side, raised in the East. Happy to be here. Believe in what we're doing over here on this side of town. Love the kids. Love the good times we're having and all the lessons that come along with it. Good enough?
That's good enough.
All right.
All right, we doing round robin here.
We're doing a round robin.
All right, so I'm Lakweshia Ewing, native Memphian. I've been here in Chattanooga for about 13 years. I am a serial entrepreneur and a recovering public education administrator. We can go into that later. I'm also a licensed evangelist for the Church of God in Christ. I love my community. I love helping people, and more importantly, I love doing kingdom work.
Bang.
Yeah.
We are represented by the religious organization.
Wow. I'm not even old enough or tall enough to even sit at this table. This is like late winter. You must
Trust
be
me,
this tall.
you wait, man. She's here to take all of us down. Meg said, your podcast has been boring up until she came into the room.
Said boring?
She did.
Ouch.
I think that was more representative of what she thinks about me.
I'm Andy Sweet. Hopefully you've all heard all the other ones, our other podcasts about us, but I'm from Illinois originally, been in Chattanooga since 2008, and I constantly struggle with how to describe myself. I'll just say problem solver. Like, I can't, my background is in scientific research and physiology, and I've got numerous businesses as an entrepreneur, but really what I find is I like looking at broad scope issues and beyond and try and find different pathways to solve. Problem solving. It's my world.
Well, I am Michelle Peterson, and I think I'm the resident billionaire in the room. I mean, Donald Trump has proved that you can just call yourself a billionaire. And everybody will believe you, right? So that's what I've decided to do. Every time I go public, I'm going to be like, I think I said it. I met Lakweshia Ewing at the Female Factor. Shout out to Donna Lowe at Main Street Innovations for putting us together. In fact, same thing with you, Carlos. Shout out to Donna and Marty Lowe for introducing us.
She's the plug.
She is a plug. There is no doubt about it. Donna Lowe has a continuity that's better than the neutral on the ground in electricity. So she can put people together, and funny enough, I'm not sure she sits still enough to sit and enjoy the conversation that we have, because here we go. You know, Lakweshia joined us last week. I love the recovering educator coin. Now we have 4 people, so let's see how much, you design in uneven numbers usually, and that seems better, but now we have 4 people at the panel, and I think the discussion that we left off on, Carlos, last week is simply the fact that what I picked up on from Lakweshia when I met her at the Female Factor is both of us were serial entrepreneurs. Both of us have had a lot of business experience, and yet we both have had to leave Chattanooga to try to make and go to ponds that had more diversity of thought when it comes to being able to make money, whether that's selling a home elevator or whether that's selling a service or anything else. The whole reason I started this and invited you all to my clubhouse and obviously put together this team is, frankly, shout out to Franklin McCauley, because the one thing he did say is intentional relationships make a difference. Mm-hmm. And so what I could really hone in on is that when I went to restaurants in downtown Chattanooga, and I have this kind of restaurant mafia group that goes around and we eat at different places, I noticed there were no black people anywhere, ever. And it began to resonate with me every time I walked in a room so about 4 years ago, I started asking people, where are the black people in town? Because I had slowed down a little bit in business. I had made a little bit of money, and I had decided to slow my career down on the side of things, diversify a little bit. And I met a young man who introduced me to Donna and Marty, and Donna, really, to her credit, was the one that was instrumental in saying, Michelle, you need to come out and begin to talk about this. Because the interesting thing about the restaurant scene as an incubator for entrepreneurship, and whether or not that economic ladder is working or not from a waiting table perspective, and I've always compared that as the genesis of entrepreneurship, because your unlimited tip as you approach that table is based on the service that you give and how you relate to your customer. And then I would go to the convention center for something that somebody would invite me to, and everybody at the convention center that was waiting on me without an economic ladder was black. And I thought that was representative of our economy, of the Chattanooga economy, that it was not open to those that didn't look and act like us. And that's why we're here at this table, is to expand that conversation, because I don't know enough about education to know if even the education world is diversified enough or if it's too sterile that you can't make any changes.
So I guess the first thing I would say is, we all have a very limited view, even though, we may be world travelers or very well connected in other cities. Whatever our perspective is, it's just that it's our perspective. And we have to be careful not to make too broad a stroke on our perspective, right? So it's real easy if I like a certain type of food, and every time I go there, I don't see anyone who looks like me. Part of that is because I like that food. I think that food is good, but the masses may think it's terrible, right? So I could very easily say, this race of people or this gender never eats here. But the reality is that I'm the only one that really thinks it's good. All right, so we have to be careful in broad strokes when we talk about the landscape of Chattanooga. I'm not a native Chattanoogan, so most of the history that I know of Chattanooga was learned history that I had to actually go and dissect for myself, because I felt like people were feeding me what they wanted me to know of what happened in Chattanooga, so that I can have what actually ended up being a pretty jaded perception of what existed in Chattanooga. Because as I started doing my own research, I realized that the studies that were put before me and the people that were identified as key stakeholders were really the approved gatekeepers for some of these philanthropists and organizations.
Yeah, statistics can say whatever you want them to say if you just analyze it the right way.
Gather the information from. I want to go on record to say that as a native of Chattanooga, in the last 5-6-ish years, I've found my perspective to be that it's good to have people from out of town move here, because you bring a different perspective on what the possibilities can be, so to speak. Whenever the industry started to close down, Wheeling Foundry, U.S. Pike, and all those places, when they started to close down, those were jobs that native Chattanoogans kind of gravitated toward after high school, or even some that couldn't find a way out to college. But when those started to close down, you started getting this familiar phrase that they're taking all the jobs from Chattanooga, because that was about the time the aquarium started to come around and downtown started to kind of pick up a little bit, and people would say, well, they're taking all the jobs from Chattanooga, and it wasn't that, it was that they took the jobs that we were used to.
Changing the job structure.
And the same thing happened in Detroit, when the car plants went down.
Exactly.
I mean, it wasn't really, Chattanooga, and I hate to interrupt you, but Chattanooga wasn't the only industrial economy. I mean, nationwide, there was an industrial shift in our economic framework as a country, as plants and foundries and, all of these manufacturing places were shutting down, and we're seeing this shifting toward the tech age. And what happened, though, when you look at education, what you'll find is that because education was designed to put in laborers at all of the levels of those industry jobs, all of a sudden you have all of these tech jobs that no one can fill the spaces, because schooling was never training you to fill those jobs. It was training you to fill the jobs of yesterday, not the jobs of today. And we're there now. We're at the same place now. It's just a different landscape. So you have this shift of entrepreneurship, this shift of technology and innovation, and you still have kids that are learning reading, writing, arithmetic. And I said arithmetic on purpose because that's how antiquated some of the things. And so you have pockets of people that are trying to interject things into our local school system structure, but the basic structure is still not lending itself to the global economy that's out there for the kids that are showing up. We talk about them not being college ready. I don't think the colleges are ready. Like, the kids aren't ready for college, but the colleges aren't even ready for the economy.
Yeah, they're still stuck in arithmetic world for sure, like we talked a bit last week. And it's changing structure of the town. And I think, I just came back from a little vacation visit to my hometown near Peoria, Illinois, which is another river city built around this factory and industry and everything else, where right now Caterpillar, it's their world headquarters, having major issues. But we see something similar happening there, right? You come from these river cities or really any industrial place that for years, for decades, thrived on factories of a bunch of blue-collar workers going through doing the same thing every day. That goes away, maybe that industry takes a hit or it evolves, and all of a sudden you have a new influx of workers, right? So they have different talents and tactics. And Chattanooga, all of a sudden, from the first time I came here in the 90s to now, you can see a different Chattanooga. The face of Chattanooga is no longer river industry, right? It is now outdoor and active, or it's, things like that. Well, sure, that brings in different people, and all of a sudden I hear it all the time, being a non-native Chattanoogan, like, oh, you came in with all those people, like, you're not really from here, you don't really understand. I'm like, no, I do. Chattanooga has changed. Yeah.
Was always the question I got. You went to GPS, didn't you? No. I came here to play basketball and really didn't know. And I think that's fascinating, Andy, that they lump people. When I say they, I keep saying there's not one individual doing this. There is a collective. It's just like at Nike. I keep saying this, that Nike, the podcast before you came on board, Lakweshia, I have always focused on the NCAA being the poor man's federal government, whether you're white or black. It doesn't matter. It's mostly black people, though, that are part of that are creating the economic stimulus for, one could argue, all the white people to have their sports. Because if you look at the ancillary sports that are really intramural type sporting, and I don't understand why you need to offer a scholarship in a sport that can't sustain itself other than it be intramural, within the ability for somebody who can play football. But the argument there is that you hurt the women. But see, the reality for me is if I were running for office, which is what I have said, how this all started, is I thought I was going to run for office. That's what people do. You make $1 million and you decide, in most people's cases, they make $4 or $5 million, and then you decide, well, I'm going to go fix the world or give them my same business acumen to the political arena. That's what you hope happens. The more I get into it, it looks like it's just another form of business. And that basically you go into the political arena to succeed, to also re-up on what you're trying to do with your family. And then the difference is, instead of, lords or, whatever the words were in English, you call them governor or mayor or councilman or senator. And for me, that's where the disconnect is. If I was going to go into government now, I would do it for unselfish purposes. It wouldn't be about me. It would be about beginning to have a discussion on how the federal government is stagnating all the growth in our country by not breaking up these corporate cults. That, yes, they are sterilizing the marketplace, but what they are also doing is creating exploitive measures to keep people who artificially, for decades, have been kept out of the marketplace, now saying you're a part of it, but we're going to put this Nike label on you so that we privately can get paid to give you the benefit of running in our arena.
I mean, branding runs in our vein as a country. Ooh, that one hurts, but it's true. There are people that look like myself and my fellow panelists that were branded. So branding is at the helm of what America was built on. I hate to say that.
Branding and property.
That's you only brand your property. That's the purpose of branding.
That's why I don't want to get married, because marriage was based on property. I want to have a corporate charter
that's
based on consideration.
All right. We're not gonna go there because that's a church conversation. But let's stay on education. That might be another one. So, because I beg to differ on that.
I tell you all the
but,
time, I have a hard time finding my way to the Father, but I have no problem finding my way to the Son.
Marriage is about covenant, not contract. Property is about contract.
If I'm having a kid today, I'm not getting a Social Security number. I'm getting an FEIN number. I'm making that kid a charter of the best state possible, probably Vermont. I'm serious. I mean, the state of Illinois. I wrote the Chicago Tribune. They didn't publish my paper, but I wrote the Chicago Tribune because what they're finding is that women, especially women of color, are having this thing where they figured out that they can double dip. If they don't give the state and acknowledge who the father is, then the state won't pursue the father to stagnate his ability to go earn money and pay her privately. And then she can have the nest of the state government facilitating federal dollars. So what they have proposed in the state of Illinois, which didn't pass, but what they proposed a year ago, is that you hold back the birth certificate until they can at least have a collective number of guys to go out and test to find out who the father is. And the reason you hold back the birth certificate is because you need the birth certificate to get your Social Security number. So I wrote the Chicago Tribune that did not publish this. I wrote them a very eloquent article on that these mothers need to give up on the social net and go ahead and incorporate their child.
Oh, gosh.
And those children become corporations as they come out of the womb.
I think we need to link to this letter in our show notes. I'd like to read it.
You're killing me. Babies are business, huh, Michelle?
That's it.
Babies are not businesses. Babies are people.
That's the
problem that we have.
Look at it, right? That's the way the federal government wants to look at
Look
it.
at some of the parents, though. Look at some of the parents. It's all perspective. It's not what you see. It's how you see it. And even some parents who may not realize what they're doing, but that kid is a business. How many fathers are out there and the only reason they have a relationship with that kid is because of the child support? And the moment that child support stops, that mother does something shady to move the father out the way or keep him from the kid. So even though she's not consciously saying, this is a business, it's all about the business because it's all about the dollar.
Let's not institutionalize foolishness. Like that's. I mean, I do not. I'm not arguing that it doesn't exist.
It might be educated foolishness, but the reality is, I know you're going to say it's foolishness, but the reality is, corporate law in this country is moving much quicker than individual law.
I agree with that.
So if you become a corporation, if you're an immigrant like Shree here, who's basically come over and learned, I would recommend he become a corporation because he can still leave this country and be a corporate chartered entity even in India. And I can explain to him the benefits that he can take from that and utilize in immigration law that would blow your mind.
So like morally, I'm about to like flip out of this chair. From a business standpoint, everything you're saying makes total sense to me. But my moral compass is like spazzing out right now. That joint is spinning around.
See, there's the issue. You have a moral compass.
That's the issue, that I have a moral compass.
If every one of those athletes were corporations, they would have intellectual property rights as a corporation up against another corporation.
Or if you had understanding of your purpose and your value, then I can negotiate as a human what I'm worth.
The system is rigged.
Why would I want to be a part of a system that's rigged?
Because you're poor. You ain't got anything better.
But how did I end up poor? I didn't come here poor.
But you're looking in the rearview mirror, and I'm looking in the front windshield.
I'm doing a thing tomorrow for the leaders. Oh, I can't say it. But I'm doing a thing tomorrow where I'm literally telling my story, my own personal story of how I grew up. I slept 3 to a bed most of my life. Like, I grew up poor. I thought everybody got the free lunch tickets. I didn't understand that was just something that it was certain kids that got free lunch and there were other kids that brought their lunch. I just thought they didn't like the food. Like, I didn't even understand all of that as a kid. I grew up poor. But let me tell you something. My mom would always tell me, you can have caviar dreams and tuna fish money. I'm only poor if I decide that I'm poor. The system doesn't get to tell me I'm poor. You make a decision, because poverty is a mindset. And so I make a decision. If I come here and I'm making, my mom I found a check stub of hers. She was making $4,200 a year as an annual salary. I thought I was reading it wrong. I'm like, Mama, is there a period or something like that? Because that number made no sense to me, but she had 2 kids. We never knew we were poor until somebody on the outside told us we were poor. You know why? Because the things that matter don't cost money. And once you have that inside, then I can build whatever fortune I want to build. Here I sit today, a different Lakweshia than what could have been if I had adopted the poverty mindset. So no, I'm not going to say that, the system makes you poor and people are born into different situations.
Lakweshia, you could take that one step further and expand the conversation.
Hold on.
I'm going to go with you because here's the deal. If you're a corporation that's bankrupt, you're still an individual with morals.
Are you?
Yes.
Sometimes.
In this world you are. In this country you are. Okay. As proven by every corporation that goes bankrupt and they open the next day under a different brand.
Correct.
But you can't do that as an individual, and that's why corporate status is so important. And you can't include morals in the ability of an individual to expand themselves through corporate charters. I can go in every state in this country and become any corporation I want to be, and I can sell or expand any service I want to have. And if that corporation goes out of business tomorrow, it isn't attached to me. Correct. Do you don't think the families figured that out?
I know a business
slave without holding the whip.
There's a business right now locally that I saw go under. I asked them why were what was going on. They said they're going under. Some things happened book wise with their previous name, and the next week I drove by and it was the same business but a different name, and I'm cracking up because see, you say that they can still maintain their moral whatever. My thing is, you know what, sir? You being deceptive. Like, you started this new business. You started this new business that's really the same business. And those people that have a true compass, I know, man, I wish I could say the name, but like, I know that when I go eat whatever I'm going to eat at your place, it's the same menu. So the super special sauce is now the super slippery special sauce. I know it's McDonald's. It's the same business. That is not integrity. That's not moral. But that is what happens in the marketplace. But that doesn't make it right because that's what happens.
But that's the way it's supposed to be because we came from Europe without forgiveness.
I didn't come from Europe, yo.
You were brought over.
I wasn't brought over. I was born here. What are you talking about?
When you said you didn't come from Europe, though, I thought you were talking about history. Because most black people in this country got brought over from Africa. Most people got brought over from Europe.
They did not.
The reason that people came here.
Columbus did not have the money, Michelle. Columbus didn't have the money.
Tell me that Columbus story.
Listen, Columbus, because he didn't have the money. You know the story. He didn't have the money. He had to borrow the money. That's why everything has got a Spanish name right now. If you go.
Tell the story. I don't know the story.
Well, the story is this right here. Columbus
I only went to school. They didn't educate me. They just schooled me.
Whatever. So Columbus Columbus didn't have the money. He goes to the Queen of England. He didn't have the money to go on his quest. So he ended up getting the money for his trip to go on this search for the Newfoundlands and all that kind of jazz that you read about in school. He got the money from the Queen of Spain. That's why he floated on the Nina, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria. Columbus was Italian. His name was Christoph Colombo. That was his name. So when I find something, I have to claim it in the name of Spain. I cannot claim it in the name of of England or Britain. But this is the thing. When he showed up, which was El Salvador, first of all, is where he landed, El Salvador. But when he showed up in America, there were people here. So no, my husband, his people, they are Native Americans. So they didn't come over. So everybody that looked like me did not get brought over. I was born in this country. However, my people may very well have been already here. They weren't, all of my people didn't come from over. We can't, and that's a perception that people get. That's a misconception that a lot of people adopt. Every black person didn't come from Africa.
But here's the conversation at hand: is that I've been told to call every black person in America African American.
And Toni Morrison said that in America, that America is synonymous with white because everybody else has to hyphenate. My thing is,
but why can't I just call people black people without being offended?
Because people.
Well, right, because black is the color of this table, and last I checked,
Because
me and Carlos looking like some
Nestle
cocoa, and not a charcoal brisket.
Andy and I are a different shade of white. Hold on. Last time I checked, Andy and I are a different shade of white.
You're not white. First of all, let's talk about the fact that, man, I'm going to get deep
Come
on
on,
this.
bring it.
Color doesn't even exist. What you have to understand is that color is light absorbed, and the way that it bounces off of your retina, the back of your the back of your eye, your retina, your optic nerve, basically light bounces off of that projects onto a subject. So that means you have to realize that everything that you're looking at is a form of light. And all of us are a form of light. So what happens is people start saying, well, light looks different on you. Because let me tell you something. If I was conditioned to believe that Andy is purple, that the color in his skin is purple, if that's what I learned, every time I see something that looks like Andy's color, I'm going to call it purple. Why? Because I was conditioned that when light bounces off of something that looks like his skin pigmentation, this is what it's called. That's called operant conditioning.
It's conditioning.
Yes, conditioning.
That's what it all is.
It's all conditioning.
Or perception of reality, or wherever else you want to
affect,
talk about.
How
does conditioning affect our marketplace? Because that's really what we're here for. Why do predominantly American lights, if that's instead of calling them blacks,
Call them lights.
Whatever we want to call people of color in this country, why do people of color run up and down the field of dreams and not realize it's the horror that's going to put them there if they get hurt because they have no safety net? Why do they do it then?
Say that again. I don't know that I
Why
understand.
do people trade their sweat for an education that isn't going to give them any further purpose in life? Because statistics show 67% of NFL players that leave the NFL within 3 years go bankrupt.
So, and I don't know that that's a racially motivated thing. I think that, all of us have been sold this American dream, and, we all kind of intrinsically have this desire to hope and aspire for greater than what's before us, right? I have to believe that there's something more. Part of that may be innate. I don't know. I haven't really studied that much. But I do believe that, people have hopes and dreams. And so when you see that as your hope and dream, because you've seen people that look like you, and when I say look like you, I'm talking about to every facet, right? Their story almost matches parallel with yours. And so you look at that person gives you hope that, right here, sleeping on this floor, or going to this broke down school, or, my mom working 3-4 jobs. My boy, Inky Johnson, has a great testimony about, growing up in Atlanta, and, his desire was to not see his mom work and bust her butt the way she was doing for them to barely make it, and he was going to go to the league, and he was going to play NFL ball, and he got recruited, and he was doing, he was, I think, number 16 draft pick out of Tennessee. The coach told him, Inky, all you have to do is play another 15 games, and you're going to be an instant millionaire. And he goes out there, and he makes a hit, breaks his clavicle. He's now paralyzed. In college at the University of Tennessee, Inky Johnson. Google him. He's all over ESPN now because you know what? His divine path was to lead him to the NFL. He speaks to every NFL team. He speaks to college teams. He made it to the NFL. What does he
talk about when he speaks?
He talks about the story I just told you, and he talks about the process because he never gave up. When they told him that he couldn't play no more.
Does he still struggle for a meal?
He ain't struggling for a meal, but he has testimony of where he was. But he thought football was his way out, and football was his way out.
Lakweshia, that I would add to that is the millions of dollars that these institutions, because people build buildings and science buildings and give them economic opportunity. Because if you look at the University of Alabama, 60% of their enrollment in the last 8 years have been out of state because people are drawn to success. And so you bring Nick Saban in, you cut him in part of the deal, you get people from all over the world traveling that want to go to the University of Alabama and bring their intellectual abilities from their observational point of view to leading to something that from the point that they took the government out of the institutions, which was in an act in 1983 called the Dole-Bowl Act. And basically it said that if anything was discovered in a university setting with federal dollars, it didn't belong to the federal government. It belonged to the university. Those became the microcosms. They might as well have called the University of Tennessee a state. And those people in there are socialistic entities of that state. Because it's a social environment where not one person can have an equity. Even the people in the science department can't get part of the deal unless they discover something that's amazing. That girl that got in trouble at UCLA or USC that invented that thing about cancer, she basically had to pay everybody off while telling people she had discovered this most amazing thing. And there was this colluded message that came out that she had, and now they've come out and said that she didn't. But everybody invested and paid the bill to get a cut of the deal. And what your description is the only thing I want is the institution to pick up the insurance. If they're going to collude, if they're going to issue the bonds to build the stadium and build the housing, not let these kids even pay their utility bills to get a life lesson out of the deal. Because did Inky Johnson know how to survive before he got hit?
How to survive. Did he know how to thrive in this economy? I don't know.
Pay bills?
I don't know.
Did somebody pay it for him?
I don't know, man. I don't know.
And that's the point of this.
Maybe we need to get Inky to come down and get on the show.
Hey, Inky, come on. Because the deal is I need somebody to bring me a firsthand experience of what he felt like when, or she, but honestly, the economic ladder has never been offered to female athletes. I would sponsor a female athlete right now if given the opportunity. But I can't buy my way into that arena because it's too expensive for even somebody like me. And the female sports have more of the ability to advertise to female. The number one growing people going to NFL games right now are female between the ages of 25 and 40. You'll see the ads directed towards those women when you watch an NFL game, and you'll be like, why am I watching an ad that looks like it should be paired up with The View? Because they know the growing marketplace at the NFL. And I said that to a guy here in town who runs our sports committee, and he goes, how do you know that? I said, because I can read, and I can decipher where they're putting their advertising dollars, and I can watch the advertisements during a game and see where that's going. And what you will honestly say, somebody said to me, I never thought of it that way. But if Inky Johnson had the ability to generate his own brand paired up next to that Nike brand, so that he had a shoe that he liked too, or he had a T-shirt he wanted to play, or a hat. You got a really cool hat. I know people online can't see it today, but if he was wearing that hat out, why should he not benefit from his success? They don't let people in this country benefit from their success in the athletic arena, and I would argue in the business arena anymore. We are dinosaurs because we are controlled by what? Google, Yahoo, Bing, Facebook. You have to buy your way in. I don't know about you, but it's disheartening to me that we live in today's standards and our government can't break up these corporate cults to give us enough opportunity to buy our way in. We either got to go in.
Yeah, and there too, the things we talked about before. contracts and loopholes and insurance and taxation and all that are additional ways that if you're not in, then you're out. Like you're not going to learn because they've locked that away.
I never met a black insurance person ever approach me. Is there one here in Chattanooga?
Insurer?
Yeah.
I'm sure.
Yeah, there's many, several.
I've never met one.
Well, they exist.
They do.
Yeah, there's quite a few.
What would be interesting is if you took all these institutions and you looked at the insurance behind it to see how much, because when I look at the state insurers, the states have insurance boards and the people leading those insurance boards, there's not one white person in all 50 states. One black person in all 50 states leading those boards. That tells me it's a rigged system.
I wouldn't necessarily say it's rigged. I'd say that there's a it may be an arena that has not been open enough for people to even want to get into it. And even in that, there may be some inclusion going on to where you have to go a certain route to get to it. And either those routes hadn't been opened up to someone black or just the realization of wanting to get to it hadn't been thought of.
Allstate's the only insurance company I know that puts the face of black people in front of it and says, "Think about it."
No, you got Ving Rhames now. No, that's a security system, right? That's a security system now.
Tell me of an ad you've seen with a black person that has insurance in it.
I don't even watch television like that, so I can't tell you anything.
But my point is if you got all 50 states pairing up in the insurance industry to issue bonds, and then all the workers or a percentage of the workers are of different color and primarily women, and they are paying those insurance premiums to protect their families, but they don't realize that the money that's going over to those insurance companies as a float are creating businesses that basically are inherently opposite of what those communities need. I can take you to North Chattanooga and show you every commercial building that's been built by insurance, funded by insurance. And I can show you that there are no African-American businesses in those buildings and very few African-American people living in those buildings. But how many African-Americans work for the Hamilton County school system? And are those people recognizing that when they put that insurance over to a side for a future benefit to their family, do they recognize that they're working against themselves from a community investment standpoint?
So part of that answer I think is no, and another part, of course, is yes. That there are people that know. And this is just the way it is. There's no other option. There's no other option. There are people. Sometimes I say, for some people, that ignorance is bliss. Right? It's like I don't want to know. Like there really are people that it's
easy.
Like I don't want to know because the more I know, I'm gonna have to do something.
Yeah.
I used to be like that. Like you know what? I just don't want to know. Ignorance is bliss, but that never really works.
It is what it is.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so it never really works. So when you come into know, then I do believe that there's a subset of people that really want to know, and they don't know what it is they don't know. So that you have platforms like this. I'm not a conspiracy theorist, in that I think that there are like these horrible people that exist. Now I do know that there are horrible people that exist, but I also I choose to look at the cup being half full, not half empty, because I realize whatever you focus on magnifies. So if I focus continually on the people that are holding me down or trying to hold me back, what'll end up happening is I create a self-fulfilling prophecy for myself. And it's not so much that they held me back, I held myself back because I was focusing on them holding me back. So I choose not to deal with that. And that's the message I choose to convey. I think media plays a big part of that. Media plays a big part in what people know and what they don't know and what they desire to know. Because if I keep spoon feeding you things that are easy for you to digest, then when I throw you a steak, you don't want to take the time to chew it. So I say all of that to say, I think platforms like this will lend itself to people that really don't even know that this is a conversation that maybe they should be having because they never even thought about it in those terms.
Yeah, and I think we've already seen some of that on comments on Facebook and whatnot where we post or especially on the Frankly Speaking Facebook page, like, what are you talking about? and they're like, do you not get this? Do you read it, try and understand it? We try and explain. whether it's insurance as taxation or this effect of collegiate and athletics and branding and large business really controlling everything. People are starting to get just the edge maybe as they read through, but that's the issue. The information has to get out there, and there are blocks being put up to keep it from getting out. No question. Just this week,
information changes situation.
Yeah, and even just this week, I've been following those of you who watch our stuff on YouTube as we put the podcast up. YouTube is changing their structure to where they're going to disallow monetization of certain shows, censored, and if you use certain, vulgar language or you say things that might be politically driven or beyond, they can censor, they can pull it away, and they can even, again, just say you can't monetize. You can't make money on our platform. You can't share this information. We've created a new law that says you can't.
Well, because again, what we get back to is the same premise. It seems like everybody I run into is the person with all the gold makes all the rules. But I have a little bit of gold. And the fact is that I have made up my mind until I die or go broke.
Or get shot.
But we've already established if I get shot and don't die, I still won't talk about this.
Yeah, you'll still stop.
But when the people that are living right at subsistence existence and right above that, they're paying for a future benefit, that I'm not advocating that people stop paying their premiums. What I am advocating is we have a battalion chief at the fire department that is at this table for no other reason than the fact that I never hung out with anybody government other than my mother for 20 years because I was in the private marketplace. Before I met Carlos Hampton, I never even knew what the fire department did. And the reality is that is a PR nightmare for citizens who aren't educated. The same thing can say to the flip side of that. If he is looking at something from a perspective of how many insurance premiums are being collected by that fire department to mitigate that fire person, that fire employees of the city's risk, and they are pulling that money and making him safer by the day, but still pulling the money from property owners through property and casualty insurance, because that's what I told an architect buddy of mine who's been in the architectural business for 20 years. I will see a code change that is used to protect Carlos, right?
Or even to protect you.
No, but more importantly, used to mitigate the risk of a firefighter getting hurt in that building by sprinkling the building and doing other things. I do agree it's a protection on my part. But the reality is what it's doing is basically taking an administrator point of view for a large fire department and saying, we can't afford our workers' comp and our general liability because we can't bring people on because the risk is too great that he may lose his life when he enters a building. So let's make that building made of something. Let's not make it create cancer when it smokes. Let's do all things. But yet my property and casualty insurance continues to go up even though the codes are instituted to make it a better product. Mm-hmm. And what I see that as a fraud, as a benign fraud. The same way I see the NCAA as a benign fraud for an upper economic ladder for the trade of a person's sweat equity leading to an education that they can turn around into a marketplace and charge someone for, is not being tracked. There's no mechanism of tracking right now for kids that began in the collegiate world but didn't end with a degree. Because what you guys may not know is that college sports and college scholarships, as of 1972, were only one-year contracts. So if that player got hurt, even though there are some hardship scholarships, it depends on how great an opportunity that player lends to do they stay with it, because it's tied to education. If you know coming in the player can't read that well and scores just enough to get in to your university, but when they stop participating in the class, then they can easily blame the kid for not participating in his life if the kid is no use to that institution anymore.
That's why I don't agree with the term student athlete. I think when it comes to being a student, if the emphasis is not primarily on the student part of that, then there's an issue. Because the focus is, I'm going to get you out here and you're going to play and you're going to pay your tuition through the damage that you do to your body versus getting the proper education. And
you know what I would have called Inky Johnson? We established this 2 podcasts ago. I'd have called him Inky Nike. He'd have never had a last name if he entered that plantation up there called the University of Tennessee.
That goes back to the branding and the ownership.
Once you put that brand on him, he no longer is a volunteer. He is owned by the system called Nike.
And I don't keep up with sports.
I know you don't.
Like most people, but I did realize that earlier they were, I guess, endorsed by Adidas. And here lately they have a Nike swoosh on them. And I don't know when that changed over or when they went from Adidas to Nike, but I remember back, I guess when I was in the military, that Tennessee was endorsed by Adidas. They had the Adidas sign on the jerseys or whatever, but now there's a swoosh on it. So somewhere between
somewhere
late 90s
and a lot of zeros got
Inky Johnson might have been Inky Adidas.
Yeah,
but in my world, if you're going to brand a kid, because that's what it is, then just call him by the brand you put on his shirt and the girl that you put on her shirt, so that we're all transparent here, that that's who's paying for these kids to run around and generate you the advertising dollars that you need to sustain yourself, while also issuing $60 million of state-issued bond debt to build those stadiums. I wrote a scathing op-ed that I sent the Johnson City Press Chronicle about them bringing back football. What you don't know is it ties into the major systems of things, because when these people issue this bond debt to build these gigantic stadiums and create economic stimulus artificially, then it causes all of our pricing to go up. So plywood is no longer $32 a sheet, it's $58 a sheet. Because the suppliers are limited, and how they supply these institutions with their material affects all of us. So that's why it affects you. Whether you watch sports or not, whether you participate in that arena or not, those big contracts established. We already established that RJ would pay $450 a pin, and that's why I would only give Christian and Shamari another opportunity to win the $500, which became $50, because RJ agreed to pay $450 for the pin. He didn't know that he could sit back down, and I wanted to play so much that I would have gone to $350. But as proven by the table and the ownership of the table, he knew that $50 is better than nothing. And that's the part of this conversation that bothers me the most, is that you have all these people buying into this mitigated system of insurance, and all these insurance guys are colluded. And they can buy the bond debt that's being issued by the states that then drives up the rest of our cost based on pure market circumstances, supply and demand. So that's really what occurs. And then what occurs is a person who's working for $32,000 a year at the Hamilton County school system, when they get their increase of premium, they're being told that it's because there's too many claims and all this other, and there's no checks and balances to the system. They can charge them whatever they want out of fear. Because what other choice do they have if there's only 3 insurance companies they can pick from?
Or if they want any amount covered by their by their
now
employer.
Let's say this: the University of Syracuse just opened a captive in Vermont. Now most people
what does that mean?
It means that a captive is a way that you can create an insurance company and not call it part of Kellogg. So Kellogg can go up to Vermont. Well, Goodwrench was one of the first captives in Vermont. And they can create an insurance company that basically what that does is that allows Goodrich to charge premiums on their workers that they don't put with a third party. They put with themselves. They create their own pool of money by like I keep calling insurance being private taxation, they can charge that guy on the factory or that girl on the factory floor $300 a month in health insurance premiums. And if she or he or that family does not use it, because health care for most people in this country is just a non-negotiated copay with the doctor. Because that's what most people use their health insurance for, is a fixed cost doctor's visit. And now we've got that happening in the premiums for drugs. You can go to Walgreens, you can throw that card out, and if they're in that system, the socialistic negotiated system, then that cholesterol medicine that you bought is at a fixed cost for most people that are in that pool or that group or that HMO. But what I'm saying to you is that when Goodrich charges their 60,000 employees, you do the math. And if those 60,000 employees are under the age of 40, they probably have a very good chance of being able to use that float to go invest in themselves and call it some other company. And they can compete with themselves just on the insurance they charge their people. And then they can control the price of tires.
God, scary.
And that's what they're doing in the athletic arena. They're controlling the number one paying job in the in the state of Alabama for public officials are right now, right? Or is right now, right?
Coach of what?
High school coach. $280,000, the highest paid high school coach right now.
280,000.
Yeah. You gonna pay attention now?
Andy, we're in the wrong business.
Yeah,
You're in the wrong business because you're a natural coach.
Oh man.
$280,000.
That's a look.
If you look at the stadiums they're building outside of Texas right now, the high school stadiums,
Yeah.
I mean, it's unlimited. 30,000 people going to be in there buying popcorn and Coca-Cola.
But only Coca-Cola, not Pepsi.
I don't know over there. I don't know if they'll sell beer at high school. The beer is where it's at. They don't even do that at college much anymore. They don't even let you bring a flask in, I think, at the University of Alabama's games anymore. People were getting crazy. They can still sell plenty of Coca-Cola and peanuts and popcorn. And that's why we have to pay attention, because the more they buy, the less opportunity we have, because it drives the price up. The more they have, the less opportunity that we have somebody who's going to give us any sweat equity, let alone equity at all. And that's why Shree's sitting here, because he's a guy who came over for opportunity, and he has someone that doesn't have the ability to tell him, this is exactly what I'm going to pay you, but here's how you're going to pay into the system. And you're going to pay these insurance premiums, even though his family may not ever have that insurance, because he may have to go back if they change immigration law. How many Mexicans do you think get Social Security numbers, and everybody wants to talk about how they absorb the system and the educational side of things, but they pay into the system, and there ain't no security part of that if they get deported. They're just paying into the system.
In hope that I
But
get
if they
to
became a
stay.
corporation, they don't have to pay into that system.
She's back to that.
Yeah, I know.
Back to that,
Back to that
yeah.
incorporation.
It is about morality. It's about economic morality. I can't talk about the other stuff. I'm not educated enough. And I'm not a believer in the whole, divine faith thing. I've made that very clear. I struggle with that.
So I'm back on your insurance investment side. How much of that is open knowledge,
Exactly.
accessible knowledge?
The only reason I was told is because the guy who told me thought that I was part of his club and that I was rich enough to stay quiet.
So, but if you take does it happen from the insurance company? It's their money going into a pool that then they get to distribute for various investment chose by the company? Or is it decided upon by a board?
I'm certain that they try to
wonder how
basically
that's
put
done.
it together where it appears as though it's all up and up. And to be honest with you, if you look at Warren
Probably
Buffett's,
is, yeah.
his has been up and up. He's created more wealth in this country for the pool of people that he's created it for. And in fact, if you look at Wells Fargo as a bank, they're probably one of the better banks to work for from an economic upward mobility status. And so the reality is he took all that insurance that people gave him and he created billions of dollars for other people. He still lives in the same house that he owned back in 1972. And I know why, because he doesn't want to look like he made money on the backs of people. But the reality is that still doesn't make it right when all the fish are in his pond.
Well, that's what I wonder, if insurance companies are investing money on the behalf of that investment, saying that we're increasing the growth for use, for insurance claim use in the future, protecting the assets. Yeah, what kind of visibility or they have to have some sort of method of showing that. Maybe they don't have to, but
they're regulated by the state. They're not regulated by the federal government. So if the state looks like all of them, as I've just pointed out, you go on, they do. If you go on these boards, there are very few women on these boards. It's just old white dudes moving the bait and the fish around. And when they find out that home elevators prints as much money as I've been able to print from it, I will be out of business, because they will get someone somewhere to install. And the guys that make $80,000 a year with me putting in home elevators that are young, and I give them an economic ladder and I tell them where to go, the fish are, that will be over for me. And I know that. So that's why I bought property. Because ultimately property is where you can at least have some mitigation of risk, because you have somewhere to put your head down. That's what I'm saying.
Making them more land, right?
Right. But I just think that it's important for you to understand that if, for all of us that I'm talking to here and talking with, I get frustrated because I can see it, but I can't explain it. Does that make sense? I get very lost in the whole idea. And so then I just look for the diversity of it. Are the boards, are these corporate boards diversified? Are these...
And what does that mean? That may be our next podcast. As we're leading up to this, to Startup Week and some other stuff. I'm part of a conversation. I think this is the title of it. It's called... If you invite me to the party, why won't you let me dance, or something like that? I think, but it's about inclusion in this whole innovation conversation locally here in Chattanooga. But I think that's a discussion. Like, what is, when you say you're diversifying the board or you're diversifying the committee, to what end, right? So I would often say to people, it actually is a bit of an insult. I do understand in diversification, but it's a bit of an insult because you need a black face that you invite me to a board, right? I'm more than that. It's a bit of an insult if you invite me to a board because it's a board full of men and you just need a woman. Because to that end, you could have gotten any black face and any woman. But I believe that there's some skill sets that I have, that there's some talents and different perspectives that I bring as Lakweshia, not as a black African-American woman, but as Lakweshia. And so if you're only expecting me to speak from those two parts of who I am, you're missing multiple facets to who I am as an individual.
But I would judge you just by your name. I mean, the reality is, let's face it, let's speak the truth here.
But listen, I put on my resume that when I haven't had to do a resume in so long, but the last time that I did, my resume was a monogram and it said LJ Ewing. Actually, it was Tibbs because I wasn't married yet.
But let's be
clear.
LJ
Tibbs.
The reason Michelle Peterson wants Lakweshia Ewing on a board for diversification, because I know there's someone else out there that has a name I can't say very well, and I've admitted that because of my Appalachian tongue. Whatever, it's not ignorance. We can be honest with one another.
But this is what I'm saying. So with your honesty, and I respect your honesty, but that's so superficial and it's so insulting.
But it's still the truth.
But that doesn't make it right.
It doesn't mean that it has to be right or wrong. It's my truth. You have your truth. And if there's someone out there that has never seen a name like yours on a corporate board,
right,
then good for the corporation for putting you there. Because most people would not put Lakweshia Ewing on their board. So I have to give the people, if you don't want to accept the invitation, it's on you. That's your business. But if somebody is inviting you, I'm going to clap for that. You know why? Because you have a name that most people in inner circles would say is too ethnic.
But what's the good of the name being there if it's not being utilized?
That's why she's at my table, because you are utilizing it. Let's be clear that I'm not being insulting with you. You speak your mind, which is why I am drawn to you more than I've been drawn to anybody in a very long time. I was drawn to Carlos because I had never met anyone at the fire department that was also trying to be an entrepreneur.
And I've lost my flair now. She's gotten used to it.
Yeah. Move on.
The newness is worn off.
Let me know how I roll.
But I think there's a ton on both sides of that where you can't just have diversification for the sake of it. There's absolutely no reason for that. But
if that's where you start,
there can be diversification.
But you have to see it for what it is too. Do you sell all the way out and then go home and know what you are?
Inequality. But here's the other part too: is there's no reason to say that those very, very simple, broad strokes of diversification that they're actually going to have the best interest of that of their quote unquote demographic either, right? So you can say like, oh, we're diversifying, we're bringing in an African American, or we're bringing in a female because she's going to stand up for the females. Like,
and then when
you
she
don't know that,
right, and then when she doesn't, or you do understand that, man. Oh my God, I'm trying to get my blood pressure down.
Come on, man.
But I'm saying you do understand that when we're at Mark too, you do understand when when slavery was abolished, whatever that means for this country, that we didn't become free and become one monolithic group of people. So Lakweshia cannot speak for every black person. This is the thing. When I sit at tables, and so I sit at a table where I'm the only one, and there's a running joke I have with some of my professional friends, and we may make posts. I'm letting y'all in on the code. We may make different posts that says, I came in, I was the only one. And that's all it says. It has you don't know where I am, but I walked into a meeting, and I'm the only one. And that only one means I'm the only minority of any kind, African American, Asian, Indian, Latino, wherever. I'm the only one when I walked in. And when I walk in, it's like I'm supposed to be speaking for all of the people that look like me. This thing drives me nuts, and I've stopped doing it probably about a decade ago. I used to say, well, my opinion, and this is the thing. I noticed that when I sit at tables with my professional peers who weren't African American, who weren't minorities of any kind, except for the fact that maybe you were a woman in a room full of men, but they would say, even the women did it though, when they were in a room full of men, they would say, they wouldn't say, in my opinion. They would never say, in my opinion. You know why? Because when Michelle says something, we know that's Michelle's opinion. We know that Michelle is not representing every white woman. So Michelle would never say, in my opinion, because we know that's your opinion. But I would always have to say, well, it's my opinion, because I need you to know that Lakweshia is speaking for Lakweshia and not all black people. Now, there is a hint of naivete in that, because I do understand that there's a hint of naivete in there, and that I understand that to some people, a lot of some peoples, okay, that I represent a body of people, that when you see this African American face on the board and I'm one of two, that's who I am. But I'm going to tell you something. When I get there, what you will find is that, you know what, when it comes to the masses, I'm not a sheeple. I'm not a sheeple type person. A sheeple is a person that's led around. So there are people that follow, religious, race, movements, because that's what everybody's doing. When I get there, you'll realize that, you know what, I'm kind of an odd kid. I'm really not the same as what you think. So yeah, you want me to come there and advocate for women, but I tell people I'm a European feminist. I'm not an American feminist. I don't want to be a man. I don't want to do things that men can do. I was made a woman. I want to do what women can do. And I want to be able to do what I can do as a woman at the height of my ability. But I have no desire to be a man. I don't want to be equal with a man. I don't want to be a man. I'm a woman, and I want to be a woman. So in that sense, I fight feminist battles, but it looks a little different. I'm more aligned with the European feminist movement versus American feminists. So you may not want me at the table.
Which is really feminism in reality, right? Correct. This other version is something
So
skewed
here's
and
the deal.
created.
We have run through this hour again, and hopefully you will join us next week.
Hey, if I'm in town, I'm here.
I mean, Carlos is still doing the duties of battalion chief, so he couldn't come last week. We hope we get him this week. Andy's still doing a swath of things to make his money after closing his business. And obviously, I am over here at Archway. And the simple fact of the matter and the reason we're at this table is because I'm trying to educate kids, not school them.
I love it.
And the reality is that if we say anything that offends us, it's just our opinion. Each individual at this table has an opinion, right? And so there we go. It's Wednesday. Talk to y'all later. Have a great day.
See y'all. Subscribe.
See ya.
Peace.